Making headlines this hour, Vice President Hossein Mohammad Latif underscores the urgent need for structural reform of the international financial system. The government opens a competitive tendering process for the development of police infrastructure on 8 islands. And National Drug Agency's chairperson Lubna Zahir says before the incumbent administration took office, successive governments had failed to establish a remand center for drug users.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Welcome to PSM News in English with me, Hafiz Abdul Sattar. Now the news in detail. Vice President Hossein Mohammad Latif underscores the urgent need for structural reform of the international financial system during a multi-stakeholder roundtable 6, reform in the international financial architecture and addressing systematic issues at the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development, FFDA. Delivering the keynote address, the Vice President outlined 3 immediate actions required to reform the global financial architecture. He urged fellow co-chairs to ensure the representation of small island developing states through reforms in governance structures, specifically by updating quotas, reforming voting rights and decision-making rules, increasing board participation and enhancing transparency and coordination among financial institutions. The Vice President also emphasized the importance of ensuring debt sustainability through adequate financing. He detailed the Maldives' call for a debt relief for resilience building mechanism that does not incur additional debt and stressed the need for increased transparency, greater international support, and the establishment of fair credit ratings for SIDS. The Vice President is currently in Spain to attend the FFD4, taking place in Seville from 30th June to 3rd July 2025. The government opens a competitive tendering process for the development of police infrastructure on 8 islands, advancing its national plan to extend law enforcement services to all inhabited parts of the country.
Ministry of Finance and Planning, acting on a request from Maldives Police Service, announced the opening of bids for a series of construction projects aimed at expanding policing capabilities. These include the planned establishment of police stations in Shavianifiva, Ra Maduvari, Mim Muli, Ta Timarfushi, Ta Vemandu, and Lam Mava. Accommodation facilities for law enforcement personnel are also proposed in Ha Alufudiddu and Ha Dal Kuludufushi. According to the Finance Ministry, contractors bidding for the police stations at Muli and Vemandu are required to submit bid securities of $13,784.42. For the remaining stations, the mandated deposit is $4,685.53, while proposals for accommodation blocks require $8,269. The ministry added the procurement process will adhere to the national competitive bidding method in full compliance with the public accounts regulations. Registration for interested bidders must be completed via the Banderi portal, where a non-refundable fee of $32.42 is payable between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. on official working days. The deadline for registration is the 22nd of July. Bids must be submitted exclusively through the bid portal no later than 11 a.m. on the 29th of July 2025. The ministry stipulates that portal registration must be finalized at least 3 days in advance of the submission deadline. The infrastructure expansion forms part of a government-wide initiative to establish law enforcement services across all inhabited islands within a 2-year time frame. This year has already seen the launch of multiple police station developments on islands previously without permanent facilities. Government officials maintain that full territorial coverage will contribute meaningfully to building a secure and peaceful society.
National Drug Agency's chairperson Lubna Zahir says before the incumbent administration took office, successive governments had failed to establish a remand center for drug users. Lubna Zahir, speaking to PSM News on Rajamiyat program, said NDA drug users are held in remand for the safety of society. She said that though it is mandated by law, successive governments had failed to establish a system to hold drug users in remand. According to Lubna, NDA's primary aim is to put drug users under long-term rehabilitation treatment after their remand period. She added, out of the total 269 people that have been taken into remand custody so far, around 70% have been placed in residential care. Lubna said NDA immediately starts detoxification treatment for those taken into remand custody, along with getting them psychological help they need. Drug addicts are usually taken into remand custody if they pose a danger to society or their families. NDA has initiated the expansion of the detoxification center at Himmafushi Rehabilitation Center. The facility will be available to treat up to 50 individuals simultaneously and is nearing completion. A four-story building is also being developed in Hulumale to run a remand center where about 100 individuals can be treated at the same time. Maldives drug testing capabilities have also significantly improved, with the number of detectable substances increasing from 7 to 22. The Ministry of Islamic Affairs announces a wide-reaching initiative to expand religious learning across the country, following a pledge by an overseas university to donate 60,000 books to Islamic libraries nationwide. Ministry officials said the contribution is expected to revitalize Islamic centers established across several islands, many of which remain underutilized. The effort falls within a broader governmental strategy aimed at strengthening religious infrastructure and broadening public access to theological resources. As part of this plan, Dr. Muhammad Shahim Ali Saeed, Minister of Islamic Affairs, confirmed that the books secured through arrangements with a university in a friendly country have been designated for libraries at centers in Diddu, Ungufar, Timarafushi, Adu City and other locations throughout the atolls. The minister added that preparatory work at centers currently in operation is scheduled to begin shortly. Establishment of a library at the Salman Mosque in Mal is reportedly progressing swiftly, marking one of the first Islamic library projects to move forward under the initiative. The development of libraries across the country was pledged as a part of President Dr. Muhammad Muizza's electoral commitments. As part of a concurrent digital initiative, the ministry last year introduced a designated website featuring an online library that provides access to publications issued since 2008. Ministry officials said the platform would be expanded to accommodate a wider selection of titles across Islamic and other scholarly disciplines, with materials available for online reading. A parliamentary committee report says Maldives Marketing and Public Relations Corporation (MMPRC) is taking the right measures to reverse the losses reported in the past 3 years.
Operating as an independent and autonomous body under the governance of a board of directors appointed by the President of the Maldives, MMPRC actively markets the Maldives in key global markets. The Parliamentary State-Owned Enterprises Committee had appraised the recent financial position of MMPRC as part of its wider effort to review state-owned tourism-related companies. The committee's report examined the company's financial position in detail, highlighted measures taken to improve the company's finances and recommendations of further steps. MMPRC, for 3 consecutive years, had reported losses leading to concerns of bankruptcy. Financial statements of MMPRC for the last 6 years read as follows. 2019, $1.53 million profit. 2020, $21,700 profit. 2021, $9.2 million loss. 2022, $2.7 million loss. 2023, $1.2 million loss. And 2024, $1.8 million loss. The committee in its report had noted the steps being taken by MMPRC since 2023 to reverse its fortunes. The report had highlighted that MMPRC has increased membership fees this year and increased revenue by 20% from advertising sales. The report says the hike in roadshow and fair participation fees is expected to increase the total revenue by 49% this year. In addition, costs have been reduced by 5% by securing smaller stall spaces at tourism fairs. The state-owned company has also shifted priorities to participate in tourism fairs in just key markets. Joint marketing campaigns with third parties are expected to reduce campaign spending by up to 30%, which is complementing other austerity measures. Some other cost-cutting measures currently being implemented include slashing printing costs, limiting warehouse rental, and reducing equipment shipping costs. The SOE committee report expressed concern over MMPRC's continued dependence on state funds, recommending measures to ensure swift financial independence. The report did further note that MMPRC's gearing ratios, including debt-to-equity ratio and debt-to-total capital ratio, being in minus figures, indicate a risk of bankruptcy. MMPRC, meanwhile, has pledged to realign its marketing campaigns to digital avenues and divert focus to just key markets in a bid to curb expenses.
According to data from Maldives Central Bank, Maldives' revenue from fish exports rose 40% in the first 5 months of the year.
Maldives Monetary Authority monthly key economic indicators report shows that the revenue from fish increased to $63.7 million in the first 5 months of this year, as opposed to the $45.5 million recorded during the same period in 2024. According to the data, fish export revenue was the highest in April, with $18.2 million earned during that month alone. On average, revenue from fish export revenue for the first 5 months of this year, except January, was more than $10 million, which is considerably higher than the average revenue figure last year. Revenue from fish exports this year is as follows: January, $8.6 million, February, $13.3 million, March, $12.4 million, April, $18.2 million, and May, $11.2 million. Boost in revenue so far this year has coincided with an increase in fish exports. In the first 5 months of this year, 38,800.6 metric tons of fish were exported in comparison to the 23,356.1 metric tons during the same period last year, posting an increase of 66.1%. Fish exports so far this year is as follows: January, 5,710 metric tons, February, 8,511 metric tons, March, 7,376 metric tons, April, 9,700 metric tons, and May, 7,499 metric tons. Fishing has historically been a cornerstone of the Maldivian economy, and the government has reinforced its dedication to sustaining and diversifying the sector. As the industry grows, officials have prioritized environmentally conscious policies to ensure the long-term viability of fishing as a primary source of national income. Among the latest initiatives is the launch of a National Fishermen's Register designed to streamline industry regulations and support local fishermen. The government has also introduced personal finance loans, providing direct access to capital for modernizing operations and securing economic stability.
The Environment Protection Agency and Oblo Select Sangeli operated Bioatmosphere Hotels and Resorts signs a memorandum of understanding to support the Ras Ferry Reef Restoration Program. Ras Ferry is a popular diving spot for tourists due to its natural beauty and was declared a protected area in 1995. It also plays a vital role in the ecological health of the Maldives. Male Atoll, the Panamanian cargo ship MV Navios Amaryllis ran aground in Ras Ferry Reef on August 19, 2021. The ship was traveling from Tutkarin, India, to a port in South Africa. Following an investigation into the incident, EPA and other local authorities revealed the ship ran aground after its engine was shut off due to overheating. Under the agreement, Oblo Select Sangeli will provide assistance in the restoration of Ras Ferry Reef, including technical expertise in repairing the damaged reef, coral nursery and coral planting efforts. The Male Water and Sewage Company has also entered into an agreement with the EPA to support the Ras Ferry Reef Restoration Project, aimed at providing technical assistance for the restoration of coral reefs in the Ras Ferry area. Key initiatives include equipping the RV environmental vessel with a water treatment plant and survey equipment, as well as establishing water supply and transportation arrangements. The grounding resulted in damage to an area measuring over 2,800 acres of the reef. The ship has already paid a compensation of $10 million for the incurred damages. $3.5 million out of the sum has been allocated to an EPA trust fund specifically designated for the restoration of the reef. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung says that he was doing his best to achieve a mutually beneficial and sustainable outcome from trade negotiations with the United States during a news conference to mark his first 30 days in office. Lee said during the conference that tariff negotiations with the United States had not been easy, and he could not say if an agreement was possible by a July 8th deadline set by Washington.
A senior South Korean trade official has said during high-level trade talks last month, Washington raised issues related to South Korea's non-tariff barriers, as Seoul already imposes nearly zero tariffs on U.S. imports under a free trade agreement. Lee also said the South should not stop talking to the North and should improve relations based on the South Korea-U.S. alliance, adding that he had been surprised by the swift response by North Korea after he suspended loudspeaker propaganda broadcasts directed across the border and said he would take additional steps to ease tensions. Under former President Yoon Suk-yeol, who took a hard line against Pyongyang, the two sides scrapped a 2018 military agreement that sharply escalated hostility. The two Koreas remain technically in a state of war under a truce that ended fighting in 1953.
A UN expert calls on states to impose an arms embargo and cut off trade and financial ties with Israel, which she alleged was responsible for one of the cruelest genocides in modern history. In a speech to the UN Human Rights Council, Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, said the situation in Gaza was apocalyptic. It was met with a burst of applause from the Geneva Council.
Albanese, one of dozens of independent UN-mandated experts to document abuses around the world, was presenting her latest report, which named over 60 companies she said were involved in supporting Israeli settlements and military actions in Gaza.
The situation in the occupied Palestinian territory is apocalyptic. In Gaza, people continue to endure suffering beyond imagination. Israel is responsible for one of the cruelest genocides in modern history. Official figures count over 200,000 killed or injured. Leading health experts estimate that true toll is far higher. As the cost to the Palestinian people grows, Israel has dismantled the last function of the UN in Gaza, humanitarian aid. Its so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is nothing else than a death trap, engineered to kill or force the flight of a starved, bombarded, emaciated population marked for elimination.
Israel's diplomatic mission in Geneva earlier this week said Albanese's latest report was legally groundless, defamatory, and a flagrant abuse of her office.
Liverpool's Portuguese forward Diogo Jota, 28, dies in a car crash near Zamora in northwestern Spain with his brother.
The Regional Fire Department of Castile and Leon, where Zamora is located, said on its website a car crashed early on Thursday shortly after midnight and burst into flames with two men aged 28 and 26 found dead. The Portuguese Football Federation said in a statement, quote, "We have lost two champions. Their deaths represent irreparable losses for Portuguese football, and we will do everything we can to honor their legacy every day," end of quote. Spanish police told Reuters they could not yet officially confirm the names of the deceased, but everything pointed to it being Jota and his brother. The spokesperson said the Lamborghini they were traveling veered off the road. They said the bodies have been taken to a forensics unit in nearby Zamora where autopsies will be performed. Jota, who got married on June 28th, helped Liverpool win the Premier League last season and also won the FA Cup and League Cup with the Merseyside outfit. Jota arrived at Anfield from Wolverhampton Wanderers in 2020 and scored 65 goals in 182 appearances for the club in all competitions. He also made 49 appearances for Portugal, twice winning the UEFA Nations League.
Indian footwear sellers and artisans are tapping into nationalist pride stoked by the Prada sandal scandal in a bid to boost sales of ethnic slippers with history dating back to the 12th century, raising hopes of reviving a struggling craft.
Sales are surging over the past week for the Kolhapuri sandals that have garnered global attention after Prada sparked a controversy by showcasing similar designs in Milan without initially crediting the footwear's origins. After viral photos from a fashion show drew criticism from Indian artisans who make the sandals named after a historic city in Maharashtra state, Prada was forced to acknowledge that its new open-toe footwear was inspired by ancient Indian designs. Social media has been abuzz in recent days with criticism and sarcastic memes with politicians, artisans, and a trade body demanding due credit to Indian heritage. Prada has said it will arrange follow-up meetings with artisans. In a statement to Reuters on July 1st, it added the Italian group intends to make the sandals in India in collaboration with local manufacturers if it commercializes them. Prada does not have a single retail store in India, and its products are usually reserved for the super rich. Its men's leather sandals start retailing at $844, while Kolhapuris can be priced as low as $12.
And that's all we have for this hour. Thank you for watching. Wish you all a very pleasant time ahead.